Hello out there. Thanks for joining us. This is our Colorado River Basin water supply briefing for March 2023. I'm Cody Mosier, a hydrologist here at the Colorado Basin River Forecast Center. All right, today's presentation, we're going to start by looking at a review of the weather, both last month, February, and the water year as a whole. And then get into our model soil moisture conditions heading into the runoff season, as well as the early March snowpack conditions and how all of those things are driving our 2023 water supply forecast across the Colorado River Basin. Talk a little bit about the type of air that's associated with our March water supply forecasts, then get into some recent and upcoming weather and take some questions at the end. We do have some staff monitoring the question box within the webinar, so if you do have a question, feel free to type it into the question box, and then we'll open it up at the end for questions. We can unmute you at the end if you have a question for us. This webinar is being recorded, and the slides and the recording will be on our webpage later today. Okay, summary of February weather. So the graphic in the middle here, this is daily precipitation every day of February. The top left is the end of February, with the bottom right being the beginning of February. And you'll notice roughly about the first half of February, fairly dry. We did have a little bit of precipitation move through the area. But the last half of February, the weather pattern became a lot more active, and we had a series of wet storms impacting most basins. And you can see the distribution here. I know these are small, but your eyes are drawn to kind of the reds and oranges. Take away much wetter last half of February compared to the first half of February. And temperatures during the month, colder than normal. Most of the precipitation that we saw during February fell as snow, even across much of the lower Colorado River Basin. And that's shown here, the graphic on the right. This is max temperature departure from normal for the month of February. Blues everywhere indicating below normal temperatures across the Colorado River Basin for February. And just a little bit more here about the first half versus the last half when it comes to February precipitation. Again, February started out dry. Most basins by the end of February, or by the middle of February, received less than 30% of normal precipitation during the first half of the month. That's indicated here, the graphic in the middle. Big area of pinks indicating less than 30% of precipitation for that roughly first half of the month. And you can compare that to the graphic on the right. This is how February precipitation as a percent of normal ended up. So many areas ended February with near to slightly above normal precipitation as a result of that moisture that we saw during the last half of the month. Now looking at water year 2023 precipitation to date, so that would be October through February, the first 5 months of the water year. Table on the left here, some numbers in there broken down by both the upper Colorado River Basin across the top, and then the lower Colorado River Basin along the bottom, and then some sub areas within the upper Colorado River Basin. So this is precipitation as a percent of the 1991 through 2020 average. Middle column here, some numbers to put with that February precipitation graphic on the previous slide. You can see near slightly above normal across many areas. exception, Colorado River headwaters came in the lowest. They saw the least amount of precipitation during February. And then the last column here, this would be October through February precipitation as a percent of that 91 through 2020 average, looking near to above average pretty much everywhere. And the graphic in the middle here is a graphical representation associated with that last column in the table. Lots of blues above normal across many areas. You'll notice a couple areas here lagging behind a bit. In the far northern upper Green River Basin, this would be above Fontenelle Reservoir. And then a few areas along the Continental Divide have received less precipitation compared to surrounding basins this water year. But generally a pretty good picture overall, near to above normal water year precipitation in the majority of the region. Now taking a look at our model soil moisture conditions across the upper Colorado River Basin. So here we're looking at our fall antecedent soil moisture conditions from our model heading into the winter season and spring runoff season. The graphic on the left here, percent average model soil moisture conditions across the upper Colorado River Basin. We've shown this slide a few times this year. I'm not going to get into too many of the details up top here, but generally seeing near to below normal soil moisture conditions out of our model back in the fall of 2022. A little bit better in some areas compared to last year, a little bit worse off in some areas compared to last year. We did show that in the last couple webinars if you're interested in checking out how our soil moisture conditions in our model have changed since last year. But when it comes to the timing and magnitude of spring runoff, really comes down to the snowpack or sweep conditions that are out there, how the spring weather plays out when it comes to warm-ups, cool downs, just general pattern, and then these soil moisture conditions do play a role in the spring runoff timing and magnitude. Here we're looking at our model soil moisture conditions across the lower Colorado River Basin as of yesterday. So these are a little bit more dynamic through the winter as you get warmer temperatures across Arizona and New Mexico. So some of those precipitation events can be rain, and then the snow melt picks up a little bit earlier in the season. But we saw our model soil moisture conditions across the lower Colorado River Basin generally improving during February as a result of that rainfall and runoff that occurred during the last half of the month especially, and then some snow melt starting to get going. Most basins, early February model soil moisture conditions above average across much of Arizona and over into New Mexico. Here's a hydrograph for one of our forecast points in the Verde River Basin, right in central Arizona there. You can see starting back February 1st, how flows there have been behaving. This was a rain on snowmelt across lower elevations here, and then cooled off a little bit, and now we're starting to see some snowmelt occur in this particular basin. Now looking at snowpack conditions, early March, the graphic on the left here, this is looking at March 1st SWE conditions. SWE, this stands for snow water equivalent. It's the amount of water in the snow. It's what we generally refer to when talking about snowpack conditions. So March 1st, about a week ago, The graphic on the left, the squares, these are NRCS SNOTEL stations out there that are reporting the amount of precip and snow at those particular locations, and then the shaded areas would be significant runoff areas from our hydrologic model. So you can see very good conditions as a percent of normal across central Utah, central Arizona, southwest Colorado, northwest Colorado here, with again the far north here, upper green, and parts along the Continental Divide not doing quite as well. In the table summarizing how SWE conditions changed from February 1st to March 1st. And across the upper Colorado River Basin, most areas saw modest declines in percent of normal SWE conditions during February. Back on February 1st, very strong conditions across many areas. So we weren't able to maintain those in most basins. You'll notice the San Juan here in southwest Colorado did see a slight improvement, but most areas, that percent of normal SWE came down, trended back towards normal in many areas. Again, generally smaller declines in southwest Colorado, as they did see a little bit more precipitation during February than other areas across upper Colorado River Basin. And across the lower Colorado River Basin, kind of a mixed bag here, some increases, decreases. These numbers very, very good, very much above normal, both on February 1st and March 1st. These tend to be a little bit more variable. The percentages here computed using smaller values, and we are in a La Niña phase of ENSO, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but exceeding expectations across Arizona and the lower Colorado River Basin this winter with precipitation in the snowpack. And a little bit more here about the type of precipitation and snow that we've seen this winter. So the graphic on the left here, this is a graphic from the PRISM Climate Group. It's pretty interesting. They're looking at winter 2022-2023 precipitation ranking. So this would be December, January, February precipitation this winter. And they're comparing that to other years dating back to 1895, 1896 winter. And it's a ranking. So the shaded areas in green are ranked the wettest areas this winter compared to all other winters. And you'll notice, basically indicating the storm tracks that have occurred this winter. They've been fairly consistent in hitting the same areas across Utah and northwest Colorado, with a lot of these areas being wettest or top 5 wettest in some of these areas. Pretty interesting graphic there. So how that relates to what we're seeing out at SNOTEL stations when it comes to snow water equivalent, the snowpack out there. So this is a graphic from the NRCS. They operate and maintain the SNOTEL network out there, and this is showing snow water equivalent records. Grabbed this yesterday, I believe. So any dot here that's blue is a SNOTEL station out there reporting record snow water equivalent for March 5th, so a few days ago. So anything in blue is the highest and anything in green is the second highest. So a couple areas stand out here. Central Utah, again, a little bit over into the Duchesne, Uinta area, and then down along central Utah into southwest Utah, the Virgin River Basin, snowpack conditions doing well. And then the White Yampa River Basins in northwest Colorado, kind of near the Colorado-Wyoming border, and they're very, very good, near record snowpack conditions as of early March. A few stations near the Utah-Colorado border, and then down in the lower Colorado River Basin, this is central Arizona. So these stations are situated along the divide of the Little Colorado, Verde, and Salt River Basins. So very good winter, especially in these areas. Now getting into our water supply forecast for the Upper Colorado River Basin, issued March 1st. This is a summary of the Upper Colorado River Basin. We'll get into some specific details on each one of these sub areas in the coming slides, but you'll notice the best conditions, those darker greens, again, along the central portion of the Upper Colorado River Basin, coinciding with just how the storms have been tracking this winter. So strong conditions across Duchesne, some of these smaller contributing areas, San Rafael, Dirty Devil, and then up into the White Yampa. With the water supply forecast, generally above normal in those areas. And then if you move to the north across the Upper Green, again, coinciding with just fewer storms this winter, so we're not seeing quite as good conditions out there when it comes to snowpack in our water supply forecasts. And that's also true for areas along the Continental Divide. And then as you move into southwest Colorado, a little bit better conditions down there. And Lake Powell summarizes the hydrologic conditions throughout the entire Upper Colorado River Basin. So our March 1st water supply forecast for Lake Powell is 125% of that 1991 through 2020 average. Now taking a closer look at the green, Yampa, White, and Duchesne River Basins. Again, upper green, you'll notice some of these yellows, light oranges, not quite as good conditions up there. Fontenelle, 84% of average for that March 1st water supply forecast. And we're forecasting in April through July volume. That's our forecast period across the Upper Colorado River Basin. So these numbers indicate the volume of water. This would be in units of 1,000 acre feet, also referred to as CAF. So each one of these basins has two numbers. The first one is the volume of water in thousands of acre feet, and the second number is the percent of the 1991 through 2020 average. So again, above normal water supply forecasts across the Duchesne, Yampa, and White Basins, and slightly below to near average water supply forecasts across the Upper Green River Basin. And now taking a look at our water supply forecast evolution plots and model snowpack conditions across the Upper Green, shown in this slide. So Flaming Gorge Reservoir shown across the top. I'll take a little bit of time to go over what you should be looking at and for on our water supply forecast evolution plot. So we're plotting volume in thousands of acre feet along the y-axis and time along the x-axis. We start issuing official forecasts in January with our most recent forecast, this last pink line here. So our water supply forecasts are probabilistic forecasts, meaning we provide a range of numbers. So our official 50 is also shown in the title of the plot. So this volume here has a 50% chance of being exceeded and a 50% chance of not being exceeded. And again, we generally show that, we do show that in the title of these plots. So in this case, Flaming Gorge Reservoir, 880 calf, and we provide some percentages based on central tendency. So this 880,000 acre feet is 91% of average, 89% of median. We also show average and median lines on this plot here in these green lines. And again, probabilistic forecast. So the top dot up here corresponding to this volume, 1,450 calf. This volume has a 10% chance of being exceeded and a 90% chance of not being exceeded. And vice versa, the bottom dot here, 600,000 acre feet or 600 calf. This is the volume that has a 90% chance of being exceeded and a 10% chance of not being exceeded. So there's a 20% chance the observed volume will fall outside of the 10 and the 90 using our ESP forecasting method. So moving on to talk about the graphic in the upper right, this is our model snowpack above Flaming Gorge, so it corresponds to our water supply forecast evolution plot on the left. And we're plotting a couple traces here, the blue one being that 1991 through 2020 median trace. The black trace is this year, the green trace is last year. So above Flaming Gorge this year, looks like it kind of started out near normal, and then December been fairly consistently above that median trace, currently sitting around 120% of median. Okay, now along the bottom here, this is looking at a forecast point in the Yampa River Basin. Again, just a few bits of information here. So this top value here, this would be indicative of a wetter future weather scenario and a drier future weather scenario for this volume, the official 90. And again, Yampa, one of those areas that have been consistently getting precipitation this winter and tracking well above normal for the last several months. And now into the upper Colorado River Mainstem area. So this would be Granby down to Cameo. So up here, this top section here, Kremling being located right here where my mouse is. So water supply forecast up there ranging 85 to 130% of average. And this is up to a 10% decrease from our February forecast. Again, this area didn't get as much precipitation as a lot of the other areas. It came in below average for the month of February, so coinciding with some decreases in our water supply forecasts compared to a month ago. And then this lower section here, Kremling to Cameo, water supply forecast ranging 95 to 105% of average, and generally no change to up to a 5% decrease in the water supply forecast from a month ago. And now a closer look at a couple of the points in the upper Colorado River Mainstem area. Dillon Reservoir along the top here. You can see fairly steady, indicating near normal start to this season. And then this blue trace here, this is our daily model output trending downwards since February 1st as a result of below average precipitation during the month. So the forecast for Dillon, 145,000 acre feet, which is 87% of average. And some perspective here on how that stacks up against the last several April through July runoff seasons. It's right around where water year 2020, April through July volume came in. And you can see the snowpack showing this year compared to normal, sitting right around 100% back on January 1st, and then starting to lag behind the last month or so, sitting about 90% of normal. And Rudai Reservoir, water supply forecast plot bottom left, and the snowpack conditions bottom right. Pretty consistent down there. Forecast hasn't changed much since January 1st. Snowpack conditions are tracking about 110 to 120% over the last several months above Rudai Reservoir. Now moving south into the Gunnison and Dolores River Basins. So the Gunnison would be this area here outlined in the thicker black boundary, our March 1st water supply forecast. In the Gunnison ranging 85 to 150% of average, which was anywhere from a -5 to plus 10% change from the February 1st forecast. And the Dolores River Basin, this area here, water supply forecast ranging 110 to 135% of average, which was anywhere from a 5 to 15% increase from our February 1st forecast. So these areas did see a little bit more precipitation indicated by some minor increases in some areas. And then moving even further into southwest Colorado near the Four Corners region, the San Juan River Basin, March 1st forecast 105 to 140% of average, anywhere from a 10 to 15% increase from our February 1st forecast in the San Juan River Basin. And now a little bit closer look at Navajo Reservoir. This is a major reservoir in the San Juan River Basin. Water supply forecast evolution plot in the upper left here. Forecasting 735,000 acre feet, 117% of average. So a couple things you can take away from this probabilistic forecast. So this pink dot here corresponding to the volume that has a 70% chance of being exceeded and a 30% chance of not being exceeded, which is very close to the average and median values. So it's so something you can take away here, 30% chance of being below average based on our February or our March 1st forecast. And then if we were to see spring weather, very dry, warm and dry spring weather, say similar to 2002, 2012, 2008, we would expect the observed volume to come in less than 540,000 acre feet. And the model snow plot in the upper right, a few different traces here. Again, this year is the black trace. And then we're showing last year in the light purple, 2017 in the green, and 2019. So here we're going to focus a little bit more on 2017 and 2019 when it comes to the spring weather. So if you look at this, the snow trace in green, the 2017 snow trace, the snowpack in 2017 peaked around now. It peaked March 6th, and then we started melting off some snow. We got a storm and then continued to melt off snow. So back in 2017, sitting at peak snow right about this time of year. And compare that to 2019, which continued to accumulate snow through March, and then hit peak late March, and then started melting out there. So March is an important month for water supply conditions. You can see what kind of impact that has. If you see a warm and dry March, like 2017, we would expect to start losing some of that snowpack that's out there. And if we were to see a weather pattern like 2019, we would continue to accumulate snow through March. So March weather, important piece of the water supply forecasting conditions moving forward. And here, just summarizing again the entire upper Colorado River Basin above Lake Powell, with that same graphic on the left here, Lake Powell forecast, 8,000 calf, also known as 8 million acre feet, which is 125% of the 1991 through 2020 average. And you can follow this blue trace here. Started out mid-December below average. We had a wet end to December. We had a wet January, and then February again dry the first half, and then wet the second half. So the trend there correlates very closely with precipitation that's occurred over the last several months. And just a reminder, on our webpage, underneath these plots, a bunch of different links here. One of them, historical volumes. If you click on that, it'll take you to a page where you can see how the current forecasted volume compares with previous year's observations. So forecasting 8,000 calf here, pretty similar to what occurred, what was observed back in 2017. Okay, now into the Virgin River Basin. This is a basin in southwest Utah. Our March 1st forecast there ranging 170 to 180% of average. Just a couple forecast points that we have in the Virgin River Basin. Our March 1st forecast, 20 to 40% increase from our February forecast. An example here, looking at the Virgin forecast point, consistently trending higher during the last several months as they've been continuing to get precipitation down in southwest Utah. And the snow plot in the bottom right. So here we're looking at not our model snow, but these are actually traces of, they're a composite of NRCS SNOTEL stations that are in and around the Virgin River Basin. With the magenta trace, that would be the 1991 through 2020 median. We're sitting well above that this year. Pretty similar, couple different analog traces on here, 1983, 1995. So snowpack conditions at SNOTEL stations above 200% of normal in the Virgin River Basin. Okay, now looking at our March water supply forecast across the lower Colorado River Basin. So here we're forecasting a January through May volume, which is different than the April through July volume that we forecast in the upper Colorado River Basin. And we're comparing that to 91 through 20 median with these percentages here. Dark blues above 250% of normal across the lower Colorado River Basin. Again, very good near record snowpack conditions across parts of central Arizona. So all of those areas seeing much above normal snowpack and water supply forecast volumes. Some pretty large numbers here. Again, these volumes can be pretty small. For example, this Zuni point here, less than 1. So you can imagine what that does when you're computing a percentage. But general takeaway, much above normal snow and water supply forecast volumes across the lower Colorado River Basin. Here we're looking at a forecast point in the Verde River Basin, above Horseshoe Dam. The water supply forecast evolution plot on the left. You can see very large storm mid-January, and then just recently, again, early March, saw another big event down there. And because this is a January through May forecast period, starting January 2nd, we start publishing observations for the January through May period. And again, you can access these underneath the plot. There's a link, observations. It'll take you to a page that will show daily observations. So I grabbed this yesterday when the observed total 170, corresponding here on that web page, if you're interested in taking a look at or grabbing these observed volumes, and then snowpack on the right here at SNOTEL stations, around 400% of normal in the Verde River Basin at NRCS SNOTEL stations. Looking at some of these other traces, the magenta one, the median typically peaks around March 1st. 98 typically peaked around March 1st. Last year, it might have peaked early, but March 1st, typically a pretty standard peak in the Verde River Basin, and this year sitting again well above normal. A little bit about the El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO status. It's only a La Niña advisory. Sea surface temperatures did weaken further during February, and that's been occurring for the last several months now. So a transition from the La Niña phase of ENSO to ENSO neutral is anticipated in the next several months into the spring. And this has not been a typical La Niña winter across the lower Colorado River Basin. We talked about this last month a little bit. So typically during a La Niña, this box here with Arizona and that drier shaded area. So typically during a La Niña, we see drier winter weather across Arizona and the lower Colorado River Basin. Certainly not the case this year. We have near record early March snowpack conditions across parts of central Arizona. Again, here's a little bit closer look at those. So these are NRCS SNOTEL stations, and it's the maximum rank again. So anything with a 1 next to it would be the record snowpack at that site as of the end of the day on March 5th. So you can see kind of the distribution of the SNOTEL stations down there, again, along those higher elevations. So Verde, especially seeing near record snowpack conditions as of early March. And then as you move south and east into the Salt and the Upper Gila towards the New Mexico border, Not record snowpack conditions, but they're pretty good. Okay, when it comes to our March forecasts, March water supply forecasts, these are the types of errors that can be expected. This is showing our historical forecast verification with a focus on the upper Colorado River Basin. So the average March forecast errors here, a couple points selected at various points from the upper green all the way down into southwest Utah with the Virgin River Basin. Typically, looks like about a 15 to 25% forecast error on March 1st. Our forecast error tends to decrease each month into the spring, with the biggest source of water supply forecast error and uncertainty is that weather that has not yet occurred. That is the primary source of water supply forecast error. We tend to do better, had water locations that primarily snow melt and well gauged, and where we know what's going on water management wise. Don't do as well at some of those lower elevations downstream of non-real time diversions, and where we just don't know as much as what's going on out there with some of the diversions and demands that are occurring. Okay, so March precipitation. So we're about a week into March now. So what have we seen? So this is month-to-date precipitation graphic on the left. Well, we'll start with the images across the upper right. You can see March 1st into March 2nd, large, high precipitation amounts across much of Arizona. And then the last couple days, we saw some precipitation impact some of the more northern areas, White Yampa up into the upper green a little bit. Summary graphic on the left. So this is the month to date through about the first week of March. So this precipitation above average, much above average, especially across parts of Arizona with what we saw earlier on in the month. It's been pretty variable thus far in terms of where the precipitation has fallen. And then the table in the middle center here, this is just looking at our model snow changes since the 1st of March. Numbers across the upper Colorado River Basin haven't changed too much. You can see the Duchesne, Dolores, and San Juan. So that would be some of this precipitation here pushed the model snow a little bit higher than where it was back on March 1st. And then some of these numbers, again, quite large, but improving sweet conditions across Arizona, northwest and southwest Colorado, as well as the Uinta Range. So that would be the Duchesne River Basin in northeast Utah, receiving some nice precipitation this month so far. And then looking at the precipitation forecast for the next 7 days. So we are expecting 2 shortwave troughs to move through the northern half of the Colorado River Basin this week. So the timing on those, the first one would be today, tomorrow, and then another one Friday, Saturday. With the Friday, Saturday event having the potential for some higher amounts due to an associated atmospheric river. So the highest 7-day totals across the upper Colorado River Basin, 1 to 2 inches across that higher terrain. And looking a little bit closer at this graphic, so that would be, it looks like up in the upper green, the Wyoming range, expecting to see around 1.5 inches with the Wind River range here, expecting some good amounts, and then across western Colorado. So some of these purples here, that would be the white Yampa area. Here would be the Roaring Fork Gunnison divide, and then a little bit less down towards San Juan's, Dolores, southern Gunnison area. So after these couple shortwave troughs move through, we're going to see some ridging start to take place next week. So that will bring a break in precipitation and just lost audio. Okay, I'm getting word that we may have lost audio. Okay, sounds like we're back now. Again, if you're having audio issues, please note that in the question or chat box. That would be helpful. Okay, so moving on to the weather outlook for the March 14th through 21st. So this would be beyond the next 7 days. So after that, again, a little bit of a break to start next week, and then the weather models are showing another period of troughing over the western US being likely. So right now there's some pretty high uncertainty across weather models in terms of the precipitation amounts and locations. Some of the ensembles, they're varying when it comes to this troughing, the depths and the timing. So you can, an example here shown in these graphics on the left, this graphic on the upper left, so these are showing the GEFS weather model. So this was the weather model run yesterday for, and this would be the morning of Thursday, March 16th, with the blues indicating some anomalous troughing. And then this image on the lower left here, same model, same for the same time, but this was a more recent weather model run from this morning. And you can see the differences here with some deeper troughing with the more recent weather model run, so you can get a sense of, you know, how the storm track with the deeper trough shifts a little further south. So that would be a little bit more impactful to Arizona compared to this scenario up here. So there's, again, you're going to have day-to-day changes in these weather model runs. Still, this graphic, March 16th, I mean, we're still 9 days out from this time, so expect things to change between now and then. And this is a slide showing the same, roughly the same period, that March 14th through 20th period. These are graphics from the Climate Prediction Center, and they're forecasting the probability of, on the left, above or below normal precipitation. So they're favoring with their forecasts for March 14th to 20th. They're favoring increased chances of above normal precipitation for that March 14th through 20th timeframe across pretty much the entire western US with some of those higher probabilities. And then the temperature outlook for that same period on the right, little bit of a mixed bag here, slightly elevated odds of below average temperatures across kind of more Utah northwards, with slightly increased chances of above normal temperatures in eastern Arizona, western New Mexico. Okay, just to summarize here, soil moisture conditions across the upper Colorado River Basin near to below normal across many of those major runoff producing areas. Current soil moisture conditions across the lower Colorado River Basin, mostly above normal. A dry first half of February, a wet last half. Most basins end of February with near to slightly above normal precipitation, with temperatures being colder than normal. So most of that precip was snow. Early March snowpack conditions sitting near to well above normal across the upper Colorado River Basin, and then pretty extreme high snow water SWE conditions across especially central Arizona. Greater than 200% of normal snowpack conditions across the entire lower Colorado River Basin. And our March water supply forecasts, slightly below to well above normal across the upper Colorado River Basin and above normal across the lower Colorado River Basin. And we are expecting the weather pattern to remain active with and bring some additional precipitation in the next 2 weeks. Just a review of our upcoming water supply webinars. Next one will be later today at 11:30 if you're interested in hearing about how water supply conditions are looking in across Utah in the Great Basin. That's in about 40 minutes here. We are putting on a peak flow forecast webinar Monday, March 20th. We'll go over what the peak flow situation is looking like this winter with the spring runoff. And then our next one of these will be Friday, April 7th at 10 a.m. And just a few things on how to access some stuff on our webpage, cbrfc.noaa.gov. You can register for these webinars underneath the news drop-down. Sign up for email lists that we provide stakeholders with information, whether it's our water supply discussion or updated forecasts or yeah, those sorts of things. And then you can access, again, this presentation later today on our presentations page. So we offer the slides, a recording, and a YouTube link there if you want to reference this later or share it. And here's how you can get in touch with us and the CBRFC forecaster that is forecasting which basins this season. So some contact info there. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call or email us. And that's all I had today. I'm going to stop there and open it up to questions.
Cody, we did have one question about when the peak flow forecasts will be available on our website. I answered the person directly, but I thought if other people want to know, maybe we should let them know. We're shooting for the end of the day today, but we will have them out tomorrow for sure.
Okay, we're not seeing any more questions here. So I want to thank you for lending us your time today. And we hope to see you peak flow forecast webinar later this month or April 7th for our April water supply forecast update. Thanks.